Hi, this is Benandorf. Welcome back to another episode of Victoria 2, Heart of Darkness. We last left off, we were in the midst of fighting a pointless war for a worthless piece of rock against Great Britain, which we might just go ahead and expand at some point to be neither worthless nor pointless, if we could perhaps take either the rest of Malaysia, or more importantly, Sumatra, or, oh well, Java is still Dutch, so Sumatra. But before we get started with that, I'm going to give us a brief overview of the world at large. So let's start with North America. Hasn't changed much. Russia has not sold Alaska to the US, and Canada is still doing its thing. Mexico is in the sphere of the US, as is pretty much everybody else here, apparently. Spain still hasn't, or the US still has not taken the decision to give them cores on Spain, and probably won't at this point. And then let's look in South America. Brazil has continued to expand. Chile is almost nothing because of Argentina, but they are a communist country now. The others seem to not have changed much, except that Colombia has taken a bit of Peru. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Anarcho-liberals in Venezuela, and reactionary in Argentina. Alright, moving on to Africa. Surprisingly enough, a couple primitive nations are still alive in, well, just the one. Tunisia is still somehow alive in northern Africa, which is extremely surprising, except maybe they're just not worth the infamy. And other than that, it hasn't changed much since we've last looked at it. Most of these countries are still satellites. Mozambique is free. Transvaal is communist. And Zulu is civilized. But other than that, nothing really of note. A couple of these countries here in the Arabian Peninsula have westernized, but other than that, nothing really noteworthy. And moving on to Europe, a current great war is going down between Austria and Switzerland and basically everybody else. And as would be expected, Austria and Switzerland are completely losing, though it looks like Prussia is doing the lion's share of the work. So both Austria and Switzerland will quickly be kicked down away from being a great power very soon. I have full confidence. Communists have taken over most of Denmark, so that should be interesting. We're currently at war with them, of course, on behest of Sweden, but Denmark probably will be sort of taken out of it if they get a revolution. And in Central Asia, Khiva, Bukhara still exist. India is entirely taken over by British anarcho-liberals. But other than that, there's just a lot of minor states that are still satellites of Great Britain, the UK. And now we're back over to Asia, where we're keeping China in check, and the other Chinese sub-states are starting to become a little more prosperous, but none of them seem to be threatening to do more than just get to maybe secondary power. Alright, so that brings us all the way back through. Oh, well, Oceania. Australia is free as an anarcho-liberal state, as well as New Zealand. So Australia might actually be a target worth, well, looking at those populations, never mind, it really isn't a target worth taking. And nor is New Zealand, although it's a little more populated. The infamy is just not worthwhile. Alright, so, before we get started in earnest, I believe that we were going to ally Prussia here at some point. Oof, well, we're going to have to wait until our wars and both of our wars and their wars are over. and maybe strengthen our army and navy a bit. But in the meantime, I'm going to increase relations a little bit further. And it's good to be the king. So let's see. 8th Army is currently on the way up to Iceland, so let's get started. Hawaii goes bankrupt. Sucks for them, but doesn't really affect us. And our navies are slowly making some progress. Going to send the land unit to take Iceland. Looks like we're right outside of supply range, so we may have to do something about that in the near future. In the meantime, I'm going to send the remainder, or these other 2 fleets, over to start blockading bits of the UK. Pretty much only because screw the UK. They started this war, and so I have no sympathy for them. And we have taken Iceland, which means now we have no problem on supply, at least for the transport fleet. So I'm going to do something well, never mind. I was going to say I'm going to do something unprecedented and take some of the UK, but it looks like that's probably not a great idea considering the huge number of units they have there. So instead, I'm just going to hold Iceland and... oh, I will have to get Iceland and Greenland. So it looks like these guys are moving on over to Greenland, which also shouldn't take too long to occupy. And still not getting enough fuel to reinforce this army, or this navy of 11. Let's see, it looks like we can add Romania back into our sphere, so we're going to do that. Finished another occupation, so swinging them, just going to swing them through. In the long run, I want to win this war on ticking war score, which I have full confidence I will be able to do. Fortunately, this attrition is really hitting us, but thankfully, it's only taking us about 12 days per province to capture. Nitroglycerin's shown up in another state. Let's see how all of our industries are going. We'll soon have some more fuel, I'm not sure how much oil is coming out in the world. A decent amount, not a great amount, but let's see. I think we have we have a little bit of oil being produced, and more will be produced if it becomes high value, as more citizens will transfer over there. And so at this point we just really want to keep an eye on it and maybe take some more oil land like Sumatra if we can. Oh, got some cotton, so going to choose the one with more prestige. And there, we have now taken enough of Greenland and Iceland. I'm going to move this army. Maybe I will take... well, I'm going to move it over and help out in Scandinavia. Sort of give the ticking war score a little bit of an advantage. Apparently there's another bit of land here somewhere. Ah, the Faroe Islands, so I'll take that first. And then I'll move over to Scandinavia. Looks like the UK is not willing to challenge my navy at this point, which suits me. They can sit on their island and rot for all I care. More disloyal regiments, so gonna choose lazy natives, as is tradition. Bolt action rifles will be done soon, which will give us another pretty hefty advantage to the power of our army. And a nice event giving us a core on another province. And some additional attack to battleships and dreadnoughts, which is clutch at this point if we're going to fight another naval battle, which we may not. Looks like the UK is not really willing to give battle. They sucker punched us once, and that was enough. And there we go. Bolt action rifles is done. I'm thinking social science is probably worth getting here in the near future, just because our literacy has dropped again, and additional education is never a bad thing. Psychoanalysis is also up there, but for the moment, I'm going to have to finish up all of these technologies that I can research in military, or in army, I should say. But now look at that, we have fancy new Japanese units instead of the old samurai. But enough of that. We're going to take the Japanese army and beat up the Danes. Something that sounds extremely enjoyable. And let's see. We still don't have gas attack, but it's looking like their organization's much lower than ours, which means presumably the rest of their stats are much lower as well. And that was nitroglycerin in another state. Even attacking in mountains, we're having no problem beating the Danes. Especially once dig-in bonus disappears. And there we go. Now we do have gas attack, so this next battle should be even more in our favor. Which is good, because we almost we traded more than 1 for 1 in that battle. So where... Alright, following up the Danish army to Christiania. There we go. The gas attacks making all the difference here. And a complete wipeout. Oh, and the Great War has ended. Which thankfully was not enough to put anybody back over us, although France might be close when the war ends. So we will keep an eye on that. Oof. We've run up against the limit, and our Southern Healy once again has filled up all of its factories, and because it's state capitalism, we have to manually upgrade factories, I believe, so I'm going to spend the money to upgrade all of these factories in Suzhou. And perhaps build something else. I'll build another fuel refinery there as well. We certainly need the fuel. And Dreadnought's got another benefit. Plus, we can now defend against gas attack, so hopefully we will have singular advantage there. But I can't promise that will be the case, I'm just hoping. And Denmark has added acquired Gotland, but oh, and that's why we need to take that bit of land back, or else taking war score is going to hurt us more than it will help us. Let's go across Antarctica. We'll definitely outfit an expedition. And while we're at it, we're going to lower taxes on the middle class. We can run a little bit in the red for a while because we have a huge nest egg. And there's one finished. So we're going to finish off this, or beat this British army very quickly. Yeah, they do not have defense against gas attack. All the tea in Japan, I'll give that money to capitalists. Oh, that was a bad choice. I'm pretty sure that's not a state. That was a colony, which means there wouldn't be any capitalists there. Whoops. Alright, but I'm going to go and try and take back the bit of land that Denmark has decided they want. So that ticking war score will switch back over to our side. And the crisis for Poland has completely fizzled. Once this occupation's over, I might wait out to get a little bit of reinforcements to speed up our occupation a little more. Right now our siege efficiency is very low. And tensions dissipate in Shandong, which reminds me we might as well look at and see how they're doing as far as getting close to the 1%. They just keep on inching towards it. And occupation of Malmo is almost completed. Upper House rearranges only slightly. Looking at the newspaper, Ottoman Empire and Greece are at war again. Mandate in heaven, because China is now part of the great powers, it would appear. Ugh. Well, as long as they don't have any allies, and they're not going to ally me, as long as they don't have any allies, it doesn't really matter. We'll keep on taking land from them as long as we can. Right, and finished in Malmo, so going to move on to the next one. These forts are really slowing us down, but once we put a tank in there with them, it should shake out and be okay. We will have the 100% siege efficiency again at that point. And there have recently been some upgrades that have given engineers additional siege capacity. Looking at the newspaper again, yep, another news article on the rise of the Chinese Empire. Venezuela is now communist, and a note on our success against the Danish. Let's see. Almost gotten rid of the ticking war score. Although I guess it stays as long as they hold any of it. I did not know that was the case. Oh no, it looks like it may tick back down. Regardless, I'm going to take the fight directly to the Danish and try and take Copenhagen. And if they... Oh, well, we have a pretty big fleet showing up. So I'm going to try and intercept them. See what I can do on that end. I'm going to send both of these navies in to try and intercept this big fleet. And we have connected with them. Fortunately, we both just have battleships, but looks like we have a little bit higher attack and a little bit higher hull. So with near equal numbers, we might win this one. Though taking pretty heavy casualties at the same time. But oof, and we lost our admiral. However, we might beat them out on pure organization. And Army NCO training is finished. I'm going to choose Naval Risk Management. Well, no, I'll go with Indirect Artillery Fire again. Place in the sun. All must see our splendor. Come on, ships, hold out. Finishing up some more of these occupations. And getting close to winning on ticking war score battles and a little bit of occupation. Another state has been electrified. And Russia's declared war on us to try and free Hokkaido. Well, that's great. If that's what they want to do, that's what I will fight them and I will win. So that was not a good choice in their part. Oof, and we did end up losing that battle. That is unfortunate. But all of our allies have joined in, as have all of theirs, so we are now embroiled in a great war. And considering our navy just got devastated, we're not in a great place for this great war. So after the reinforcement of the Third Fleet finishes, I'm going to start building a whole hell of a lot more units for Navy. Oof. Let's see. Italy, France, and Russia. I can beat them. And maybe even take some extra land since the lower infamy for being in a great war. In the meantime, I'm going to disengage in Scandinavia, and wipe out the Russians here. But I will just sweep this 8th Army around right into St. Petersburg. The Russians are not going to be winning this. Not by a long shot. They have, however, tried to sneak into Manchuria behind my back, but it looks like I have gas and they do not have defense, so that should make a big difference. Giving chase, and first occupation is finished. Unfortunately, the occupation in the Far East won't make much of a difference when it comes down to it, but every little bit counts, and more importantly, these battles will make a big difference. Though we lost our general here, so let's choose a successor. Hopefully one that's actually decent. It would appear there's a bit of a dearth of those at the moment. Very fast. That will be good. And the Second Army is already in the way to intercept the Russian First Army, so I'm just going to move this Fourth Army up to somewhere else and complete wipeout of the Russians here. So I'm going to occupy and then move on into Finland and towards St. Petersburg. We still have all of Iceland, so we will be able to eventually win this war against the UK. Although at this point, I would even just give them white peace and take the 20 prestige loss so that I can focus entirely, so that one great power that's at war with me would back off. But hopefully the US will sort of do their part in this war. I'm making money hand over fist, so I'm going to lower taxes on the poor. No reason to piss off our population in the midst of a great war. Another state's been electrified, which is great and all that. I'm going to switch on back over to conservative faction, because that way the capitalists will take back over when it comes to upgrading some of these factories. But I'm also going to spend some money to expand as many of these as I can. And lowering priorities. And I'm just going to expand pretty much all of these in Busan. Let the economy decide which ones will get used. Kyushu needs some more expansions, so I'm going to do that as well. And back to the war. So far, so good. Taking the little islands out here in the North Sea. Complete wipeout of the Russians there. So far, we're up by a whole 3%. Hooray. Started to occupy another bit of land and succeeded in one over in far east Russia. Let's look at the newspapers. Zeppelins are the only thing really of note in this one. And then crisis averted and information about our victories. Another occupation successful, so going to just keep on sweeping towards, or going to keep on sweeping, well, I'll sweep north before I go west. I don't think the Russians will show up anytime soon. Another successful occupation, so going to move on towards St. Petersburg. Additional organization for our armies. It's always nice. And Russia's dumb enough to try and fight us in China. That's going to end very, very poorly for them. We have engaged them and wiped the floor with them, pretty much. Wiped out a few units in Helsinki and finished a couple more occupations. So, marching towards St. Petersburg. All of these occupations up here have finished. So we're going to engage the Russians a little further east. And Russia's sending more troops into China to occupy. They will not be successful, but because we have so much cash at the moment, I'm going to expand forts all over the place. A successful battle there, so going to follow up to Datong. Expanding forts. Those should be the only places that we really need the expansion. But it never hurts to expand them everywhere, and we certainly can afford it. Another couple occupations starting, and engaged the Russian army in a couple different places. They still do not have gas defense, which means we are just devastating them with gas attack. Another successful occupation, marching on towards St. Petersburg. I'd really like to get out of these mountains, because the attrition's starting to hurt us. Not as much as it did in the past, but still far from being ideal. Very successful battle there against the Russians in Datong, as well as in Ayan. And just occupying, finished another occupation, so on to St. Petersburg. Going to follow up this Russian army and wipe them out. And Third Fleet is almost finished with the dreadnoughts, or reinforced up to 15. I think I'm going to change back to using these navies in units of 30, though. Well, actually the 15's fine, so never mind that. However, I am going to build 4 dreadnoughts and 8 cruisers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To reinforce this next fleet, which will hopefully get home safely. And St. Petersburg is ours. Take that, Russia. Way to defend your land. However, probably due to... Well, I'm not sure where that occupation's coming from. Oh, the U.S. is peace. Oh, no, never mind. U.S. was not at war with the U.K. Where is all of that occupation? Oh, from Spain. Crap, I should Should not have brought Spain into this one. But we were on the defensive, so there's not a lot we could do about it. Wow. They are adding all sorts of war goals, which means their prestige is going to drop like a rock when I win this war. And it is when, not if. The Japanese will not give in. Additional naval organization and Hull being the more important of the two. And they kicked Romania out of our sphere, so I'm going to add them back once again. Also going to focus on Sweden, considering that everybody else that could possibly have an interest in them is currently at war with them. Finished another couple occupations. And where to move this army? I guess I'll just take some more of Western Russia. Prussia still is not interested in being allied with us, unfortunately. But we'll keep increasing relations and might be able to get them into this war by the end of it, which would be nice to add another front to Russia, or to fight Russia at, I guess. And a couple nice wins. A naval battle that we won, surprisingly enough, just managed to accidentally hit some transports that the French were moving. And, of course, more occupations. The third fleet is now operational, so I'm going to move it up to Sakhalin so that I will be ready to stop any potential Russian invasions. And what might be worth doing, just for ticking war score, is to add a bit of land that I would like to, or add like this state here in Trans-Baikal. Oh, the Russians have sent another army to try and take bits of China, and we beat another transport somewhere against Italy. Just instantly sunk them by the looks of it. Plus finished another occupation. I wonder if we can catch them there. Yes, we can catch the Italians before they get anywhere. So we're going to do that and completely wipe the floor with them. And the Russian army's still alive, so I'm going to follow up and wipe them out once and for all. Engaging Russia and China again. We're winning all of these battles. Unfortunately, Spain's just not doing so well. But we're starting to move the occupation back against them because of the amount of Russia and all of that we're taking. So once we win enough battles, it will swing in our favor. And I would take the Great War capitulation white peace in a second, because it would secure us as #1 power in the world, pretty much without any chance of Russia, or pretty much any chance of anybody else catching us. And another complete wipeout wipeout of Russian units. Let's see, the 8th Army. Russia's trying to sneak around and backdoor take some of the land we took back. I don't imagine it will be very successful. Won another occupation here in the west, or in the far east rather, not the west at all. Dainam's sending some troops finally to get into the fight, for whatever that's worth. I don't believe they've been threatened at all now. Oh, well, actually, yes, they have. So I'm going to send this unit in Southeast Asia to protect Dainam, help our allies out, and wipe out some more Russians. Which we're going to need to wipe out a lot. They still have plenty of brigades, although low army tech. And another occupation starting. 2nd Army's on the way. 8th is almost done, occupying here in Russia proper. And those Russians are just determined to keep getting their asses kicked by our armies. But we finished Godov, so going to go wipe out these 23,000 Russians and then take some of the Baltics. and just keep on moving east. We've engaged them in Datong, and it's about as one-sided as one would expect. We've also engaged them in Viipuri, which will be about as one-sided as we can expect. This is not a close war, not by a long shot. Moving the 5th Army back just to sort of hold a central position. Very successful in Viipuri, so actually going to follow up, finish off that army so they don't reinforce. Brigades are more important than numbers at this point. Spain accepted a very painful white peace, but that means that this has shifted very far into our favor. To the extent that we could already force a capitulation, but what fun is that? Going to take Alaska, at the very least, which has all sorts of, or is a very, very large state, province, I guess. And then I might just go ahead and take Baikal as well, although it's not super valuable. Perhaps against France. Madagascar is not really... none of those are really worth taking. Italy, perhaps? I could take a big chunk of Italy, or I could force them to liberate a country. Oof, but that would take a lot more war score than is worthwhile. So I'll probably just be happy taking Alaska. Oh no, we have some rebels that have appeared in Spain. Or not in Spain, in the Philippines, what once was Spain. So I'm going to just build up a unit of infantry here, and we'll sweep it around to take out the Carlist rebels. There should be more than enough time to do that. And completed a couple more occupations. We can demand peace on Christmas, which is rather fitting. And I imagine that the UK will accept our peace. Or rather, Russia will. We're also slowly moving up towards, just from taking war score, slowly moving up to winning the war against the UK. Russia would not accept giving up Alaska, not yet anyways. That is a shame, but we still have plenty of time, so we're going to keep on fighting this war, and they will give up Alaska sooner or later. Maybe the US will even get involved at some point, though that may be too much to ask. Romania will probably be taken out before too long. Pretty much our allies are all of our weak links. But I'm going to stop there for today. Upper House rearranges a little bit. We are in the midst of a brutal Great War, but one that we will eventually win and take a nice chunk of Alaska for. So, thanks for watching, and check back soon for more Victoria 2, Heart of Darkness.